in the case of, special needs, there's a lot of IEP goals. They're not really following like a set course of material. They have different skills that they're working on, still relevant to their learning process, but kind of in its own world. But providing the community at large with just the generalized learning materials, and then possibly taking this a step further and catering this to more applications, more resources shared amongst the community, right?
I think we were going to show each other a little bit of some of the web stuff we're working on. Generally speaking, I know practically everybody at Portage Bay has some side web project they're working on, and my brother-in-law has one. A couple of our clients have them. I think that every developer and a lot of non-developers has a pet SaaS project going on these days. The project, I'm not going to talk about it this morning, but the ICS Direct project that I've been working on with one of our clients, we're now aware of two other people doing something somewhat similar. Starting up in the last 6 months or 12 months or whatever. So it's an interesting time we live in. So Xandon's going to start with his college application app he's been working on. I'm going to show one of our clients' apps I've been working on, and then Jacob's going to finish up with his homeschooling app. So Xandon, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. So mine was I've got two kids and a stepson who are getting ready for college, and we needed to figure out a plan for them on how to get them to college. And my stepson he wanted to play D1 or D2 soccer for college, and so planning that out and getting it all set up. And I was like, this is there's so much going on in this space, like, that I need to know, and I need to organize it. And I realized there's a real problem there. And so I started from that prospect as like, what is the best way to solve this? And so I looked at a bunch of different solutions on the internet and rounded up a fairly detailed and comprehensive requirements for what I would need to build it out and make it the best I could for myself. And so that's kind of where I started on this as a project, and it's actually working really, really well. And I've got it all integrated with it's a full blown web app, full stack that it allows for Stripe. It's integrated with Stripe, so I can take payments for subscriptions. I have a number of users that are using it right now that are testing it, that I've onboarded them as testers and have special account settings so that they can be grandfathered in to always have use for it. So that's basically it, like coming up with a college planning app and building everything that I would want currently in it, and then being able to expand on it as time goes on. And so the site's called Diplomare at diplomare.com. And this is a dev version of it, so that I can preview it so you can see what it looks like. But this is sort of the marketing landing page for the web app that's built out with all of the marketing that's needed to sell the site as people are coming and needing to come to the sort of the front door and see what it offers, and all of the different information for marketing for it. This was really fun to put together and piecemeal it. We've got pricing for the long game, so we've got our different price models, and those pass through. So standard sort of web app feel. Everything works as it should. You've got all of the policies and information that goes through to different things. So the app itself, here, I'll go ahead and log into it. I've got a demo set up, and the fun thing about these web apps is when you're building them, you can seed the data into it for demoing and testing and all that sort of stuff. So right out of the gate, it gives you a whole different feel as you're building it. And it's a wonderful time, I think, right now to be alive, to be able to do these sorts of things, because these were very difficult to do. You really had to have an expertise in that field. And with AI, it's got for us who are normal developers who do FileMaker solutions all the time, we're constantly working on UI and UX patterns and different strategies to make our user experiences in our FileMaker solutions better. We also have that same knowledge base that transfers really efficiently over into a web app space. So in this case, all the things that we know that clients would generally want is able to detail out in those requirements. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in here. There is some like really fun stuff. Like right now, this would be like the mom of the Parkers, right? There's information about things that need to be done. We've got different colleges that are selected. The two different students for this example, Ethan and Sophia. We've got calendar events, which I don't think I have anything in here for that part. We also have tasks. If we look at an individual student, we can see the students. It allows for AI to take their transcript. You just basically give it a PDF of the transcript or a CSV file or whatever, and you just uses AI and it'll load it all in and loads the transcript in, gets a comprehensive list of all of their courses that they've taken to be able to see what they're going to need for their college planning portion of it. Under colleges, it can automatically use AI to get suggestions for all the different colleges based on their GPA, based on their test scores. It allows for monitoring the test scores. So, as I was going through this, it was like, this is all of the things that I need to fit the niche for my kids and be able to get them positioned really well and have a really clear path for college. Because there's a lot going on, and having it in one place has been really super helpful. It manages the essays as they're writing for trying to get into different colleges with some assistance for writing the essays. He's been a piece for Running Start and managing Running Start, which both my kids have started Running Start. My stepson was already doing Running Start when we started it. And as I had said, he's a D1, D2 college athlete. He just got accepted to Seattle University to play D1, starting the end of his senior year in high school. So that's super exciting. And he got a really good scholarship. So we're super, super stoked for him. But yeah, playing D1 college is also part of it. So for him, the athletic part of it, this is an example. There's the profile of the student for their athletic part, the information. There's NCAA guidance, the different recruiting, some timelines, events, videos, so they can post, videos of them doing, when you're applying and the coaches are going to be looking at stuff, you need to have sort of a portfolio of the different, I don't know, really cool plays. Really, everybody now has a list of information that they're giving to the coaches to sell themselves because that's what they're looking at. It tracks visits and email campaigns as well. So what's really been fun about this is just building it out, testing it, making sure everything's working. But it's just been so fluid and so nice. And it's such a different, the reason why it feels like developers are starting to build these things is because all of the heavy lifting where, if we would have wrote this even just a couple of years ago, we would have had to write it all out manually. You have to make sure everything's spelled correctly. You have to come up with the copy. So somebody would have to write that and then put it in. And then you have to organize the layout. And AI is like taking all of those friction points and just smoothing them right out. So it feels really good. It's got a financial aid section, all sorts of really cool stuff. So this, as far as like a full-blown app, is working really, really good. I've got some good feedback on it. It's open now. People can sign up for it, but right now it's invitation only. So I'm only doing a specific lists for invitation to make sure everything's working really smooth. But it's been really fun. It's been really fun. And then, like I said, I've integrated with Stripe, so they can go in here and subscribe, and it'll take payments. And yeah, it's pretty profound. Like the things that you can do now. Using AI to build these types of software as a service solutions, or even just web apps in general. And we've done several different ones. We do integrate. I have with Portage Bay. We've integrated several FileMaker solutions as well. And now we have the option to do both throughout. We have a couple of different clients that we're working on full blown just standalone web apps as well. and both work great. You know, we've worked with several different venues to make it really smooth for FileMaker to connect to the web app. And Jacob will talk probably a little bit more about that, but that uses, you know, better forms, and for other integrations where we're just talking directly to FileMaker, or FileMaker is accessing the SQL backend for the actual web app. There's all sorts of solutions that we can do there, and we can leverage AI to make all of that transition a whole lot easier than it used to be. So I'm just so excited. This is such a fun opportunity, a really cool time. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know how long these types of apps are going to really be needed in the new, you know, agentic era, but right now it's pretty cool because these have been really they've been slightly outside of a zone where you could just make them happen and make them look really good, and now's the time where you can. And it's you know, it's like going into a candy store. You have to have a very clean scope and skill to be able to put it all together and accomplish it just right. I don't want to pretend that it's easy by any, you know, stretch of the imagination, but you can get a really polished product with depending on, you know, what tools you're using and what your background is and how much of it you're already familiar with. So yeah, pretty cool.
And I have a 13 and a 16-year-old, and immediately I'm thinking, oh man, I am way behind on planning for this stuff.
Yeah, mine are 16. Exactly. Now's the time, really, because Running Start for my kids, they just signed up for Running Start, but getting ahead of it is really the key, and getting that timeline down. And so, like, getting in early, especially for the Running Start, so that they get started earning their college credits with Running Start, which here in Washington, we have what's called Running Start. Basically, they can take college level classes at the high school level, or instead of doing high school, and start building up their college credits. And it's so much less expensive for all of that, you know, general ed stuff. And then when they're ready to go to college, you're not paying for all that general ed at the premium price that you would normally pay for colleges. So
that's what our oldest is doing. And yeah, that's definitely something that an app like this can make a track. So how did you know, when you're researching what requirements are needed, is that something you're going and finding, you know, sources on that process to, you know, because it's, at least for me, it's been a while since I've been in college. So
yeah. So as with any, you know, project, when you're kind of researching, you don't want to, it's nice to pave new ground, but you really kind of have to have a feel for what the landscape is. So I did several market analysis using AI, right, for different research. Spent quite a decent amount of time researching different sites that offered it, what they are offering, what their features were, what things made them really stand out. I also looked at what was probably the most necessary, and, you know, not the bloat stuff that had been globbed on to different feature lists. And then after creating a very, you know, exhaustive several reports for marketing, for the analysis of what I'm going to need for what other sites are offering, thinning that list down, and then creating an awesome requirements list. And that was kind of the purpose when I built the requirements, was like, let's make the best you know, college planning app ever. I want this to be awesome, do everything I need it to do, and let's just see how far we can go, you know. And instead of being restricted, like, oh, I want to really keep the scope tight so I could just accomplish 1, 2, 3. I was like, let's try it all. Let's see what we can go make happen. And as you can see, everything I had hoped for made it into the list and was able to be created and you know, sculpted into this really cool web app that's very feature rich. The AI part of it, I just love, because, you know, you can get AI suggestions all throughout, anywhere you need something. And when I'm saying AI, what it's actually doing is, in the background, the API I'm using Claude API, and it goes and searches the internet for the different schools, for whatever it is basically that I'm asking it for. It will do those, and it's got prompts that it's already pre-written, so it's going to get very specific results. And then in those results, clean them up so that they can be presented properly. And in this case, there's a couple of websites that, all of these different universities are linked through so they can get this information. But when you start looking at coaches and that sort of stuff, it needs to research a little bit deeper to find out exactly who the current coach is, what's the background on the coach, what's the team around the coach, the assistant coaches, that sort of stuff. And all of that is integral. And, you can go on your own and research that, but to have it in one place and just be able to click a button and have some thoroughly thought out agentic processes to get that information, gather it efficiently, and put it into the app was really fun to do. So,
well, I'll sneak in and show the one I was gonna. So Xandon and Jacob are showing some side projects. I'm just gonna do a quick demo of a public-facing app that we're doing for one of our clients. They're a company down in California that has a healthcare related element to their business, or they have to work with insurance companies to pay for some of the services they provide. So they have a referral form on their website to take in referrals. And they asked us to help put together a web form that would insert data directly into their FileMaker app. Pretty simple, very simple set of requirements, with the exception that the form itself has some complexity for different choices leading to different sets of required fields being filled out. And then the data is supposed to appear in FileMaker, and there were some changes in the FileMaker side to allow somebody to work with the form data as it comes into the application. So this is the application. Again, it's nothing as complex as the college application app that Xandon's showing. This was a much simpler set of requirements. You select the type of referral that changes the requirements for the data that's being entered, and then you can step through it and submit the referral. A couple of things I wanted to point out that I think, again, because for some of these things, not everything. I know some of the stuff we could look at from Jacob in particular. Some of the FileMaker Better Forms work we've done doesn't really involve as much AI assisted dev as what Xandon was showing or what I'm showing. But this one's mostly AI assisted, and that means the cost of doing some of these things is quite low in some cases. And by that, what I mean is I'm able to add some things that I might not choose to do for a simple app like this if I had to laboriously code it. And the two things I'm referring to, one are this test data button down here. This orange button's only visible to me as a dev/testing person. In a production deployment, that disappears, but it lets me populate the form with test data for different conditions. So if I want all of the data filled out for a regional center application or form submission, I can click all steps under regional center, and it puts in fake data for all that, and I can step through, and I don't have to, if I'm testing the submission process or the way the data appears on the FileMaker side, that speeds up my testing quite a bit. I can go back and if I want to test the validation from page to page, I can tell it I only want to fill out just this one page for the Medi-Cal form. And then if I'm testing the validation stuff, I can delete a field and try to move on to the next field and test everything. So that's I think a big time saver, and the fact that I can add that pretty efficiently is a big win in my opinion. The other button I stuck in for dev testing only is this DB button. It shows me the most recent forms that are submitted to the backend database, so I can validate super quickly as I'm stepping through here and getting to the submit stage. Put in a few dates here. And there's my review of my submission, click submit. So I can I can click this DB button and see right away, well, did it make it into my backend database engine successfully? I don't have to go load up a SQL. I don't have to load up PHP MySQL or Razor SQL or something, or step through the process of getting the data into FileMaker to see if my submission was successful. I can see it in near real time with that button. So that's been also a real helpful testing aid. Another thing that was made quite simple by AI tooling on this is I'm not a Spanish speaking person, but the Spanish version of this page, which loads automatically if the user's browser has Spanish as the language, this is all automatic, more or less. Our client on this does speak fluent Spanish, so I was able to have with Claude's assistance, I was able to do all this in Spanish, but then have him do the essential step of reading every single word and making sure that Claude's Spanish is reasonable for colloquial California style Spanish speakers. I think that's a really important step. It is super easy to assume, especially when all this stuff is flowing so easily out of Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, that it's all right, and that's a bad assumption. It's you have to spot check, or you're going to get bit by things that aren't quite right. So we chose this one because the data didn't need to be bi-directional. We didn't need data from FileMaker in order to allow someone to do the form submission. So for this one, we decided to let Claude do something that it knows how to do perfectly well, which is write the data to a MySQL table, and then wrote a FileMaker script that pulls the form data in every. I think we have it pulling in every 15 minutes and alerting the staff to the fact that there's a new referral submission. And again, because this is not bidirectional and the form doesn't require any data from FileMaker, that works great. A bunch of the work we've done for a variety of clients in FileMaker Better Forms has been bidirectional, and I wouldn't use this approach for some of those apps. We might stick with Better Forms, or have a different kind of API to the FileMaker data, and not have it go through MySQL. But this one is very simple. Write it to MySQL and then pull it from the FileMaker side. The FileMaker's ESS functionality lets us connect the MySQL database as a shadow table on the relationship graph, and so it lets us use very straightforward FileMaker scripting to copy the data from the submission table in MySQL to the new prospects table in the client's system. So it's worked out pretty well.
So in this one, there was no need to call the data API?
No, it just seemed easiest to do it this way, because there's no bidirectional data requirements. That we don't need any data from FileMaker to allow the random person in the public to submit a form. So rather than complicate the app a little bit by talking directly to the FileMaker data API, we have it just saving the submissions to a MySQL table, and then FileMaker grabs it periodically. This particular client does not have what I would characterize as they move their FileMaker server from time to time when it's convenient for them, and so it's not as rock solid a server environment. By having the MySQL backend, we can have the web app, the Forms app, up and running 100% of the time. There's no risks whatsoever if the client decides to move the FileMaker server from one location to another. So it's a little more, in this particular case, a little more fault tolerant, I think. So
yeah,
and there's no downside because they didn't need bidirectionality anyway. So
yeah.
yeah.
Very
And for
cool.
that bidirectionality, there's a couple of different options that it took some time sort of to think about. That if you can decouple FileMaker from the loop, and FileMaker in this case can just connect to the data and pull it down. That's one, great step where you don't have to have this tight coupling of integration that, if creates FileMaker as a dependency in the loop. But some other things about using MySQL is if you can do it other ways so that FileMaker is pushing data into the MySQL table as well as pulling data out, and it's completely decoupled from the loop. And the web app has everything that it needs to be able to display the information properly. Maybe not as current exactly as FileMaker is. It removes a whole lot of dependency on that communication, live communication. And then, of course, the other part is in order to make it more efficient, instead of having to write the scripts in FileMaker that are doing all of that polling and everything, is you can actually manage all of that in the web app itself for taking care of all the mapping and all of the heavy lift structure that you would normally have to do in order to integrate with FileMaker to make it into a very clear table format for FileMaker. So you kind of can leverage the AI to take care of a lot of the stuff that we used to have to spend a lot of time manually coding in order to get both the mapping, or if you're going to do a sync, or mapping if you're going to do some sort of an export, and all of the extra scripts that we used to have with FileMaker in order to do the calls to gather that data or open it up for a web app can be shortcutted a lot and put a lot of the load on the web app itself to do that. So it's pretty cool. There's a lot of different options. So initially I thought, oh, it's got to talk to FileMaker, and most of the time it doesn't. Unless there's a really strict requirement, you can do all sorts of stuff. It's going to make the web app more efficient, more independent, and then FileMaker's its own entity, really solid, and the two don't have to have this crossover where if one goes down, the other doesn't function, and so on and so forth. They're not a dependency directly on each other. So pretty cool.
Jacob, you want to take over?
Yeah, sure. So mine kind of emerged from what was a full access, or not full access, but yeah, full access presentation that I gave for vibe coding and better forms, right? And this was fairly early in, I guess, AI's emergence. Obviously, the tooling and processes and workflows have like changed dramatically. So this is the better forms application. So this was what I gave a presentation on for full access. Just kind of this idea for me, my wife, our daughter, she just recently became a homeschool student for us, fairly new to the homeschooling world and trying to figure it all out and, map out a plan that she could follow. The resources online. I mean, there's a vast amount of resources, but it kind of seemed like for her learning process, something was missing. She's a nonverbal autistic child, so her process is like a little bit different than everybody else's. So we were looking for something that was like more catered to her. And I just kind of threw together an idea. My wife was like in agreement, right? And we thought, oh, this might make something of interest. What if now that you're working with AI and doing all these things, what would something like a web app look like that would cater to our child? So I was like, oh, hey, that's super great idea. Let's explore this a little bit. And what was the vibe at the time, right, that we wanted to portray, that overall feeling of like emotion when you come to the page. You're like this kind of that warm, cozy hug feeling is what we were kind of going for. And this was just proof of concept placed into the Better Forms environment, leveraging AI to kind of facilitate a lot of different emotional design traits. So like, you're kind of telling the AI what you want to portray, and it's really a back and forth exchange in this process. And this was just, version 1 in this case. But then obviously, the era of AI is so rapid and the tooling is vast. But the processes still kind of remain the same. In this case, going in this direction would have been totally fine, having built a Better Forms application, uh, still leveraging AI to do your design tools and go in that focus is not a wrong direction by any means. Um, I was just looking at alternatives. So in my case, like I'm running a private server in my home lab, and I'd like to leverage, the use cases or the utility that I already have from our location, and kind of iterate through the process of like, well, we're not at a point where this is going to be something people are paying for. Maybe that's something in the future, or maybe it's something that I always want as, publicly available and free. What are the options for that? And kind of like, let's explore like what this tool would look like if it was just, available to those families. And the first iteration, this was done through probably not the best AI tools, leveraging a lot of like free help. But basically, version 1 was like just pretty basic. Like this was pulling everything away, abstracting it into just like uh, a workable, functioning app running from a virtualized uh, container on my personal server. So right now, I'm actually accessing this directly through a VPN that I have set up as well. So this is all locked down. But for our use case, like to give to my wife for testing, and just kind of gain information and the experience overall, that was kind of something that we were looking at, seeing if this was something that would even be worth it. I was given some information from Evan, and I guess he has a friend in Texas who's also doing this process. And it'd be interesting to kind of see like his take or his approach on this, and see what kind of like pitfalls he ran into. So upon building this section, obviously if it doesn't load in, we'll move on to the running dev server, which I'm just serving from my local right now. But it's the same thing. So now kind of emerging from version 1, you can see the sign-in page. It's pretty bare bones. This is like AI given no requirements or subtle requirements, like the barest requirements you could see. But just to see if like the ability was there, the end process, the goal of like having it served on a server that I own, and it being able to function in that type of environment. So then adding the more of the design, the flavor, kind of like the sidebar style, like right, we're slowly approaching, like this is in version 1, the appearance in Better Forms of this ideal setup, what I've mapped out, what probably spent, a good amount of time for the portion of the presentation on, just getting things right here in the design aspect of it. We're slowly approaching this, but then having all of this like added functionality, just, working right in the Better Forms thing, we were still working on how these processes were going to map together, right? None of these are actually taking you anywhere. It's just the visual aid, right? In this case, this is just version 1. Now everything's kind of has a purpose. It's functioning now. Um, we wanted to be able to for people to add their children, and in the case of special needs, it's like there's a lot of IEP goals. They're not really following like a set course of material. They have different skills that they're working on, still relevant to their learning process, but kind of in its own world. And this, obviously, I'm still fleshing this process out. So most of this is just pretty basic, but providing the community at large with just the generalized learning materials, and then possibly taking this a step further and catering this to more applications, more resources shared amongst the community, right? And then, in the future, right, adding the curated AI assistant process. Obviously, having AI create material for you, I'd imagine is going to consume a cost of the tokens of the API in the system. I'm sure Xandon could probably speak on this for the diploma or the college app. Why he probably has a charge to charge for those services, right? It's a cost of the AI to kind of leverage and gain interest, or even in this case, build like some interactive forms or even a process, right? It's all going to come at a cost. So kind of just slowly approaching those concepts, but the AI is allowing these actions to kind of happen slowly and iteratively, still in like the design process. So there's not like, it doesn't need to be like all or none. It can be slow and over time, and still fit like a generalized outline of rules, right? So in this case, this is my first take on a full blown full stack in the realm of AI, right?
Yeah.
So,
Very cool.
That's awesome, Jacob.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Anybody have any questions?
Question?
No, one thing you'd mentioned about the AI part, that actually is a careful consideration, right? If your website is using AI API, you do have costs that are going to end up being there, and how to control it. And it was actually surprisingly easy to add that in. It's got like daily limits that they can query the AI, but at the same time, I don't want to restrict that AI API. I want it to be the best possible that it can be. So I'm not trying to use like a really dumbed down model for something that I want a really comprehensive like clarity on. So there is cost for that, especially, and you have to be careful. You don't want to set the AI off on a tangent and then come back and end up with a huge AI API cost bill. So it's a fine line, and it has to be crafted just right, so you don't end up doing that. But it's fun to be able to have that integration so easy and control the constraints so easily, that it makes that whole AI integration just so much smoother. And I think back in initially when we were doing AI, writing the API calls and scripts in FileMaker and doing all those and the loops and accounting for this and accounting for that and putting all the like manually coding it and all the things you have to think about, and it was fun, like, because that was like cutting edge at the time, a year ago, two years ago, but now that all that friction's just lifted. You can get to where you need to go and have it integrated. You just have to put constraints on it, make sure you're testing it, having it test itself, all that kind of stuff. But such a different box of tools than we had.
Yeah,
sure. Very cool. Well, why don't we call it good there? Thanks everyone for sharing, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending your time with us at the FileMaker DevCast today. We hope you found something useful, something thought-provoking, and something to take into your own development approach. Things to help you be more productive and to allow you and your teams to get more done in less time. You can find us online at portagebay.com and filemakerdevcast.com. Also, follow us on our social media accounts at Portage Bay or at FMDevCast. Please let us know if we can help you or your company with modernizing your approaches and streamlining your workflow. We look forward to seeing you during the next DevCast.